Because of the historic nature of last season, a lot of people are wondering now this offseason where Matt Campbell ranks as a head coach in college football. Where does he rank in the Big 12? If you ask me, it's at the very tippy top of the mountain. No other answer accepted. However, there are some people who don't think that way. What Matt Campbell did this offseason with his contract, though, is going to silence all of those haters. We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking only football. We're going to start with Matt Campbell, and then we are going to venture into the defense. I know it's going to be very exciting. I think the defense is where a lot of games will be won and lost for the Cyclones this upcoming season. So we'll talk specifically about the linebackers and then the defensive line, but really narrowing in on, it seems like Dominique Orange for that third segment. So don't go anywhere for that. Can't wait to dive into all that and more. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, let's dive right into this Matt Campbell situation, because when Matt Campbell got his contract extension, I was one of the first to talk about it. I think everyone that was a Cyclone fan was extremely excited. Why? Because Matt Campbell might be the greatest coach that Iowa State's had, maybe ever. I mean, is that too wild of a statement to make? The success that Matt Campbell has had at Iowa State is wild. It just is, and we've kind of broken it down. But one of the big stats that I always bring up is that Iowa State had 3 bowl wins prior to Matt Campbell being head coach. They now have 6. Do the math. They had 3, now 6. 6 minus 3, that's 3. That means Matt Campbell has 3. Therefore, effectively doubling up the number of bowl game wins that Iowa State has. That in and of itself feels like a statistic that just can't be ignored. However, there are other, the all-time winningest, whatever, like that. You really get into the weeds with the statistics there. But I always point out the bowl game win, because that's kind of like the end of the season, right? So worth mentioning there. And I do think that Matt Campbell coming back and everyone being excited about it goes deeper than just the wins and losses on the field, though. Everyone's excited when we win more games. When Iowa State wins more games, that's a good thing. I mean, everyone loves that, right? I think we'd love to win every game by 50, but that's not always going to be the case. What about the years where you don't win a ton of games? What's this really all about? The players, right? And the way that Matt Campbell has developed this culture and the developmental system that he's created to make it about the players. And, not every player is just a number. It's like you're a real person. We treat you with, a lot of respect, and we're trying to develop you into men and to the best football player you can be. Obviously, right now, we're seeing just like a wicked amount of Iowa State players in the NFL, and I think that's only going to continue to grow. So all of that, is why everyone was so excited about Matt Campbell coming back as a head coach. I don't personally know anybody that was kind of bummed out. Like, man, I really wish he would have taken that Bears job. No, I literally don't know anyone that thought that way, except for maybe a few Iowa fans, because they they kind of know that with Matt Campbell at the helm at Iowa State, going to be a difficult game every single year for those Hawkeyes, right? That's kind of a point at least worth making. Now, when the contract extension came out, we didn't really have any numbers. Same thing with TJ Otzelberger. It was just kind of numbers that weren't really finalized or released or whatever. It seems as though they are now out. I've seen a few reports from, like KCRG, KCCI, whatever. Right here, I've got it pulled up by ESPN. And essentially, we got some numbers. That's good news. And we're going to talk a little bit about what they mean. Campbell will earn $5 million a year in total compensation, according to the contract obtained by ESPN. Okay. Remember, he's on extension through 2032, so about 7 years in there. And this is the part that I highlighted because this is a part that I think is extremely important. The three-time Big 12 Coach of the Year honoree took a discount on the deal. Very important. Sources told ESPN to ensure that his staff salary pool increased and to allow Iowa State to allocate an additional $1 million to revenue sharing funds for its football roster. Wow. First off, that's you're not going to see that from every coach in the nation. You're going to see it from a few, and Matt Campbell obviously being one, but you're just not going to see that everywhere. I love that, when you see guys that come back to where they were prior, maybe it is to a college, after job offers from the NFL, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe guys in the NFL choosing to stay in the NFL over college. Rarely, if you can see some pretty big money bags out there, and it's like, well, we could take all of the money or stick around with what we've got. It's a tough situation. It is, because you never know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. Were they offered a bunch of money? That's why they stayed. Did they leave because they were offered a bunch of money? Did they leave because there was a number that could have kept them, but it wasn't enough, and they enjoy the new situation more? I think a lot of people assumed that when Matt Campbell chose to come back to Iowa State over going to the NFL, there was, now granted, obviously I believe it was the Bears that would have had to choose him. Like, they are the ones doing the hiring, but at the same time, like, Matt Campbell, very sought after name here, right? And so I think a lot of people assume that when he came back, it was a situation where, well, Iowa State must have really paid him a lot of money, and it seems like now that's not the case. He said, "Look, I'll take a discount here. I want to make sure my staff is, basically decked out. Staff salary pool increased. That's what we want." And then he also said, "We'll take a discount to help the university, to help the kids out, and get the right guys in the building." That just says so much about Matt Campbell's character, the way that he runs his ship. That right there in and of itself was enough for me to bring this up, because I think that Matt Campbell is the perfect head coach for Iowa State. I just, like, literally as simple as that. I don't see any way where there is a better model of a coach than what Iowa State stands for, other than Matt Campbell. Now, does that change with a different head coach? Does his mentality kind of shift the persona of the university? There's a chance. There is a chance that could happen, and maybe this is a product of Matt Campbell being the head coach for so long. It just feels like this is who Iowa State is. But I would argue that this is who Iowa State is. This mindset of we before me, and the team, and obviously development, and then, like, the more coaching philosophies, like, those are important too. But this idea, as opposed to, it's me, it's the team, it's the team, it's the team. Matt Campbell isn't going to take $35 million a year. He'll take, obviously that wasn't the number that was offered. That's just a number I threw out, but he'll take the $5 million a year and then effectively put what the rest of the money that he should be owed into the team. Just make the team better, make my team around me, in his coaching staff, support staff better, put it back into the players. Like, that's what you want to see out of a head coach. And a lot of the reason for that is he's walking the walk. He's doing what he's talking about. That's what you got to lead by example sometimes. You can have all the amazing speeches you want, but at some point your cards got to get on the table, and you gotta play the game a little bit. And it looks like Matt Campbell, this is like every single fan base in the entire nation has to feel jealous that their head coach isn't doing this. I just, me personally, if this came out about really pretty much any other school, I would be like, I feel like, Matt Campbell probably is doing that, but, like, I don't have any confirmation. Like, I would love to know. We do know. And to every other fan base out there, I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit here. Our head coach is better than yours. It's literally just that simple. It's just that simple. Now, the question is, does that translate to the field? Is our defense better than yours? We're going to find out as I break down, coming up right here after this. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole in one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I'll never forget the shot I hit down 50 feet of elevation, up through the woods. And I did not think I'd hit the green. Actually, overshot it. Too much energy there. But really, golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go to without chasing down the Bev card. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. So let's dive into the defense of this Iowa State football team, because this is one that this is a situation where we're really in a. This is important. That's how I'm going to put it here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I appreciate everyone out there that is a big fan of offense. Okay, myself included. Definitely need points to win games. It could be just 1 point. In theory, if you hold the opposing team to 0 and you award yourself the 1-point safety, always a big fan of the 1-point safety. But really, you just need 1 point, right? You don't need 1,000 points to win most games. The only time you would need that is if the opponent scored 999. I appreciate all of the offensive fans out there, but a part of me wonders if the defense is going to be the reason Iowa State wins as many games as they do this season. I wonder if that could be the defining factor. It really could, because Iowa State can go out and score every single possession, but if they can't make a stop, that's a tricky game to win. You have to make stops to win in football games and in the Big 12 especially. It's just how football works. Now, the linebacker room is a room that I am extremely excited about. I've said, I believe, maybe the best position group on Iowa State football's roster, top to bottom, could have the largest impact on the team's winning percentage this season, the number of wins they obtain. I think this linebacker group is wildly underrated. Don't know how, do not know how, but wildly underrated and underappreciated. And I don't know if people are realizing the amount of impact they're going to have. So when Colby Cratch stepped up on the podium, I suppose, and I watched this interview, this media availability, I immediately had to start listening. Like this was must-see TV for myself. And really what he was talking about here is, how deep the room is. That was the first thing they started off with. I think that's pretty clear. That's exactly what I have been kind of cornerstoning here. Like, that's what's making this linebacker room so great, is you do have the top end talent, but you have the depth as a result of last season. I don't think anybody expected last season to go the way that it did. That wasn't in the cards, right? It was in the cards, I guess, because it happened, but it wasn't exactly what everyone wanted to play as far as a hand goes. However, the result of that, and I believe Colby Cratch almost pretty much exactly says this quote, was like, the result of us doing what we did last season means that this season we're just loaded. We are totally in a great spot, period. End of story. And I couldn't be more excited. So the depth, very important, right? That's a very key part of this puzzle. However, when you have so much depth, there's a lot of questions around that depth. Who is going to play? is kind of the biggest one, right? Like, who is actually going to see the field? And Coach Cratch's response was effectively whoever's most consistent, right? So you could, and he talked a little bit about his like grading process. Like, you might have made the awesome play, but you took your read step in the right direction. We have to be critical about that. We have to be getting those steps right, right? It's the 1-2 up. And granted, I was a linebacker for maybe about 3 weeks. I was not built to be a linebacker. Let's just make that very clear. But you take those read steps. Let's make sure we're taking the I don't know. I'm not even gonna pretend. Point is, make sure we're doing every single tiny little thing correctly. If you're not, very glad you made the play, but we need to see the systems flawless, right? On top of that, you might have made the awesome play. Let's say you made the systems, or the systems were perfect, everything was in place. But then the next play and the next play after that, you kind of made the wrong read. You were completely headed in the wrong direction, took every part of the defense kind of out of what the goal of that set was. But then on that fourth play, you go and just light somebody up. So now you're shooting about 50%. Like, that's not really the consistency that it seems we're looking for. Here's the thing. First off, makes complete sense. I have no gripe with that mindset. That I think is probably necessary, especially for a defense. And we'll talk more about this here in the third segment as well when we talk defensive line. But it sounds harsh. It does. I think the thing you have to look at here is that this shows that you can be that critical. There are going to be teams across the country, and I'm not naming anyone in particular, but I'm kind of pulling a page out of Kenny Dillingham's quote here by saying, like, someone's got to go 3-9. There are going to be teams across the country that it's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. You're just not going to get there. You don't have the depth. You just don't have the talent. Like, that's a reality for some programs. And I'm not trying to make this, negative. I am making it positive, actually. But we have to acknowledge that there are going to be programs out there that just, we want you to be as close to perfect as we can get you. But deep down, those coaches know, like, just not the talent we have right now. We just don't have that. The fact that we can push for such excellence shows the talent of the linebackers in this room. It shows that that's what we expect because that's what you can do, right? You don't expect someone to jump 30 feet in the air if you know they can only jump 12 inches, which I'm pretty sure is like pretty solid, right? I don't know if I could. Well, I could probably jump 12 inches. Is that like a stair? I feel like that's like a stair. Anyway, I don't really have a good frame of reference for how tall people can jump or how high people can jump, but I know 30 feet's a long ways. So you don't say to someone, well, you're failing because you're not jumping 30 feet because you know they can't do that. If you're saying they're failing, you're joking. But if you've got a guy that can jump 25 feet in the air, if he's only jumping 12 feet in the air, there's an element of like, dude, you guys step it up. Wild analogy to get to the point of, if we're not constantly in our spots, we are failing because we are capable of being in our spots every single play. Versus some schools that's like, we just want you in your spots like 50% of the time. We just need 50% of the backers where they're supposed to be 50% of the time, and that's gonna be good enough for us. No. This shows that Iowa State's linebacker room is extremely, extremely talented and deep. I'm very excited about this linebacker room. And there is one more point that I have to get to, but I'm going to do it right after this. So don't go anywhere. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endlessly scrolling trying to find the best deal, Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. I am personally the biggest fan of the panoramic seat view. It's just not even close. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We got to get to the defensive line. I understand that, but I did have one more point I wanted to make on the linebacker room because this is an extremely important position group in my opinion. So let's fly through this really quickly here. Colby Cratch, Coach Cratch, linebacker coach, had a couple things to say during his media availability. I really grabbed on to the consistency piece. I think that's really, really big. He also mentioned the communication of the guys. That's going to be another factor that, like, if you can communicate really, really well, that could help get you on the field. He said that right now in the fall camp, they're moving guys around all over the place. To me, it feels like they learned a little bit from last season. If somebody goes down, they need to know how does player A play compared to player B, right? And Caleb Bacon is kind of one of the guys that comes to mind immediately. And so when Coach Cratch was asked about Caleb Bacon, he said that he comes back. Everyone is expecting like a little bit of a ramp up period. No, it's like he literally never missed a day. He goes out there and he's making plays. And what does that mean? This is something I think a lot of people forget about when guys come back from injury. Everyone feeds off the energy that Caleb Bacon brings when he's back out there making plays. It's just that simple. That is not something I think a lot of people consider when thinking about, oh yeah, Caleb Bacon's back. Everyone thinks about what's the impact he's going to have during a game. That's like the number one thing to think about, right? That makes complete sense. But what about in practice? And what about in the meeting rooms, right? So like these guys have massive impact, massive reach over the football team. And I thought that was definitely worth mentioning. Now let's pivot and talk about the defensive line because I don't want to let this slip through the cracks. This to me was a big deal. We're talking Coach Rashid here. And there are a bunch of names floating around. I obviously watched the Tamatoa McDonough interview. Awesome interview. Personally, this is the player that I'm most excited to see this season. Not really sure why. Kind of just latched on to Tamatoa. And I'm very excited to see what he can do. It sounds like everything I've heard is that this guy is the real deal. And there was some talk early in Rashid's media availability about specifics of Monterey Malone to the field, Cannon Butler and Tamatoa to the boundary. We're going to have an increased size and length on the outside, but then things really started to pivot. And I bring up Tamatoa at the beginning because we're now pivoting away from basically everything, and there was just a slew of questions around Dom Orange. Now, makes complete sense. I think he's one of the biggest mysteries, is maybe that the right word, on this defense this season. I think a lot of people wonder if could he be the key? Could he be the key right here to this defense this upcoming season? I personally wonder. I am definitely high on the linebackers, as you know. I'm also very excited about Tamatoa McDonough. I'm very excited about the secondary. Dom Orange, I think, could be a piece that elevates this defense to the next level. The key, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I think he could be what this defense needs to really elevate their game. And now that I'm saying that, it kind of sounds like the definition of a key a little bit. So you let me know down below in the comments or on Twitter at Nick_Marv what you think about Dom Orange or Big Citrus being the guy for this team. Because really, what Rashid said here is that consistency is key. And now that is something that we talk about the linebackers. It seems to be that really the key to this defense is consistency. And that makes complete sense, obviously, what a defense is. If you're consistent for 90% of the game, but those 10%, you gave up touchdowns. I mean, I'm not going to really get into philosophy here, but there are pros and cons to holding your ground for a while, keeping your offense off the field, letting them, get some rest, but you're still giving up the points. Anyway, the consistency is very important. was very evident in the linebacker conversation, very evident now in the defensive line conversation. But more so, Rashid was talking specifically about the defensive line as a whole, but Dom Orange. Okay. And this is the guy that we talked about at the end of last season, and why he came back. He thought he had more to prove. He thought he could play more snaps at a very high level. And that's what Coach Rashid said they expect from Big Citrus here, right? Dom Orange needs to come out and he said, Coach Rashid said, this guy is in the best shape physically he has been. He is in the most conditioned state we've seen him. He is completely physically capable of going out and doing what we said he needs to do, which is a question mark earlier this season that had yet to have been answered, right? That was a question of, can we get him to that level? Can we get him physically ready to do what we ask, let alone obviously the mental side, which is now more the question. Can they get Dom Orange to go out and play that fourth snap the same exact way as he played the first snap? That is the hurdle right now. It sounds like, and this was a wild quote, I don't know exactly how he meant it. Rashid said he could go out and play any position at however we asked him to and be completely capable. I would pay to see Dom Orange out in the slot. I would 1,000 times out of 1,000. Can we get that set up, Iowa State social media team, please? A little one-on-one action with the linemen. Saw some clips. Was that out of JMU? Maybe that I saw that. The skill level of these linemen often gets overlooked. We can't keep having this. We really got to show what the linemen can do. Anyway, don't want to get too far off base here, but let's get back to Dom Orange here. Like you said, best shape of his life, best shape by far, very capable of doing what we said he needs to be able to do. Mentally, that's the biggest thing. So this is where he kind of got a little real. Coach Rashid was saying, we need his level of play. He is very, one of the best players we have. We need his level of play out there on the field. But if he isn't able to bring that energy, then we're just it's about the team. It's like he kind of was like, we don't need it if you can't bring the energy. We need you to play at that level. And that's the harshness. That's the legit defensive side of the ball. I think Dom Orange can be a huge problem for teams. And honestly, Rashid was even comparing him to Will McDonald. If Dom Orange is pulling guys to the inside and it's really frustrating for him, he's not having a huge night, but that's opening up one-on-ones on the outside. That's a win. That's a huge night. But you have to bring that intensity, because if you're not, they're not going to bring people in. And he also mentioned, we got to win one-on-ones. We have to. We have the pieces. We just need to do it. That is also true. But if Dom Orange is only bringing 25% of his plays, they're well, we probably don't need to really stack the middle. And then it kind of becomes a moot point. So he's look, we need Dom Orange's level of play. He's a great player, but we need it every play he's out there. If it's 30 plays, it's 30 plays. If it's 60 plays, it's 60 plays. We need to know what that number is, and we need to get him out there for that many plays and at the right times to make the biggest impact for this football team. Let me know what you think. Is Dom Orange the key to this defense? Is he the missing link, if you will, that can send this Iowa State team to 10 wins and beyond? I think he could be a vital piece, but the key, you're going to have to convince me of that in the comments or on Twitter at Nick_Marv. Either way, I read everything. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to this point in the episode. Be sure to hit subscribe down below if you haven't already. It's completely free and helps us prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.